I destroyed my longest friendship and my $5.5 million secret with a single sentence, all because my best friend tried to take credit for the anonymous donation I made to save her son's life. My name is Ethan, I'm 42, and I live in a quiet, leafy suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina. My wife, Olivia, is a landscape architect, a woman who coaxes beauty from the earth with a gentle but firm hand. We have a comfortable life, not lavish, but the kind where you don't check the price of salmon at the grocery store. This is important. For 15 years, I've run a data security firm. The kind of place that's so discreet, so behind the scenes, that even most of our clients don't know the full scope of what we do. We protect the digital lives of the ultra-wealthy, kind of people who have more to lose than just money. It's a lucrative business, built on the bedrock of my obsession with anonymity. I'm a digital phantom. I've spent my career erasing myself and my clients from the ever-present eye of the internet. It's a skill I've honed to a razor's edge. Then there's Maya, my best friend since we were lanky, awkward teenagers navigating the social minefield of high school. She's a whirlwind of a woman, a single mom who works as a freelance graphic designer. Her life has been a series of close calls and near misses, a testament to her resilience. Her son, Leo, is 10. He's a bright, funny kid who inherited his mom's artistic flair and her unfortunate luck with health. 2 years ago, Leo was diagnosed with a rare form of pediatric cancer, the kind of diagnosis that makes the world tilt on its axis. The initial prognosis was grim. The experimental treatments were prohibitively expensive, the kind of money that makes you feel like you're drowning. Maya, bless her heart, launched a GoFundMe. She organized bake sales, charity runs, anything she could think of. The community rallied, but it was a drop in the ocean. They raised about $50,000. It was a testament to her spirit, but it wasn't going to be enough. Not even close. This is where I came in. Or rather, where I didn't. I couldn't just write her a check. Not a check from Ethan, her friend of over 2 decades. It would have changed everything between us. The power dynamic would have shifted in a way that would have been impossible to ignore. I've seen it happen before, money poisoning relationships like a slow-acting venom. And selfishly, I didn't want the attention. My entire professional life is built on the premise of being invisible. A multi-million-dollar donation would have put me on the map in a way I couldn't control. So I did what I do best. I became a ghost. I set up a series of shell corporations and blind trusts, a labyrinth of digital breadcrumbs that led nowhere. It took me a week, working in the dead of night from my home office, to create a completely untraceable digital entity. From that entity, I made a series of anonymous donations to the hospital where Leo was being treated. The first was $1 million, then another, and another. All told, it was $5.5 million, enough to cover the entire cost of Leo's treatment, and to fund a new wing for the pediatric oncology unit. The hospital, bound by confidentiality, could only say that the donations came from an anonymous benefactor. The local news ran a story about the guardian angel of Charlotte. Maya was, of course, ecstatic. She cried on the phone to me for an hour, talking about miracles and the inherent goodness of people. I just listened, my heart a leaden weight in my chest. I felt a strange mixture of pride and guilt. I had saved her son, but I had also lied to her. A lie of omission, but a lie nonetheless. For 2 years, life went on. Leo went into remission. The new wing of the hospital was built. My secret remained my own, shared only with Olivia. She understood my reasons, or at least she said she did, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She knew the weight of the secret I was carrying. The turning point came, as it so often does, at a ridiculously mundane event, a neighborhood barbecue. It was a sweltering July afternoon, the air thick with the smell of charcoal and freshly cut grass. Kids were running through sprinklers, their laughter echoing through the manicured lawns. I was manning the grill, flipping burgers and trying to avoid a conversation with our overeager new neighbor about property taxes. Olivia was inside, helping with the potato salad. Maya was holding court by the pool, a glass of rosé in her hand, telling a story that had everyone in stitches. She was radiant, her face free from the worry that had etched itself there for so long. I remember the exact moment things started to unravel. I had just handed a perfectly charred burger to my neighbor when I heard Maya's voice rise above the general din. "Oh my God, you guys are not going to believe this." A small crowd had gathered around her. She was holding her phone, her eyes wide with a theatricality that was classic Maya. "You know the guardian angel donations? The ones that saved Leo?" A murmur of assent went through the group. The story was local legend. "Well," she said, taking a dramatic pause, "I think I know who it is." My blood ran cold. I froze, the spatula hovering over the grill. I could feel Olivia's eyes on me from the kitchen window. I tried to catch her gaze, to send her a silent message, but she was already moving towards the back door, her face a mask of concern. Maya continued, her voice filled with a self-deprecating, but proud tone. "It's so embarrassing, really. I should have realized it sooner." She laughed, a sound that was suddenly grating to my ears. "You know how I'm always playing the lottery? $1 here, $1 there. Well, a few years ago I bought a bunch of tickets for that big Powerball jackpot, the one that was over $1 billion. I could see where this was going. My mind was racing, trying to find a way to intervene, to steer the conversation in a different direction, but I was rooted to the spot, a silent observer at my own execution. "I didn't win the big one, obviously," she said with a wave of her hand. But I must have won a smaller prize. A few million, maybe? And I must have accidentally donated it. You know, like one of those things where you can choose to give a portion of your winnings to charity. I probably checked the box without even thinking about it. A few people in the crowd looked at her with skepticism, but Maya was a master storyteller. She was weaving a narrative that was just plausible enough to be believed, especially by people who wanted to believe it. Think about it, she said, her voice gaining momentum. The timing fits perfectly, and the hospital said the donor wanted to remain anonymous. That's so me. I'm always doing things like that, just ask. Ethan. She turned to me then, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and something else I couldn't quite decipher. Remember that time I accidentally paid for the car behind me at the drive-thru? It's the same kind of thing, just on a much bigger scale. I just stared at her, my mouth agape. The comparison was so ludicrous, so utterly disconnected from the reality of a $5.5 million donation, that I almost laughed. But the sound that came out was more of a choked gasp. Olivia was by my side now, her hand on my arm. Her touch was the only thing keeping me grounded. Maya, she said, her voice calm but firm. That's a pretty big assumption to make. Maya's smile faltered for a second. Oh, I know it sounds crazy, she said, turning back to her audience. But it's the only explanation that makes sense. Who else would donate that much money and not want the credit? The question hung in the air, a direct challenge. And in that moment, looking at Maya's triumphant face, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. The ghost was about to come, out of the machine. The world seemed to slow down, the background noise of the barbecue fading into a dull hum. All I could see was Maya, her face flushed with a bizarre mixture of pride and feigned humility. My best friend, the woman I had known for more than half my life, and she was standing there, in front of our friends and neighbors, taking credit for the most significant act of my life. An act born out of love for her and her son. A cold, hard anger began to build in my chest, a feeling so foreign to my usually placid nature that it almost took my breath away. It was the anger of betrayal, the anger of seeing something pure and selfless twisted into a narcissistic fantasy. The ghost in me, the part that craved anonymity and control, was screaming at me to let it go, to fade back into the shadows. But another part of me, a part I hadn't realized was so strong, refused to be erased. Olivia's hand tightened on my arm. She knew me better than anyone. She knew the storm that was raging inside me. Her presence was a silent plea for caution, for a measured response. But I couldn't. Not this time. I took a step forward, the spatula still in my hand. It felt ridiculously out of place, a prop in a drama that had suddenly become very real. Maya, I said, my voice lower than I intended, almost a growl. What are you talking about? The crowd, which had been murmuring its uncertain support for Maya's outlandish claim, fell silent. All eyes were on me now. I could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the party-like vibe curdling into something tense and uncomfortable. Maya's smile flickered, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her eyes. Ethan, I was just telling everyone about the donation, the one for Leo. I heard what you were saying, I said, taking another step closer. I was vaguely aware of people backing away, creating a small, impromptu stage in the middle of the lawn. You think you accidentally donated millions of dollars from a lottery ticket you don't even remember winning? Her laugh was brittle now, a nervous tick. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds silly, but it's the only thing that makes any sense. Does it, Maya? I asked, my voice rising. Does it really make sense that you would just forget about winning millions of dollars? That you would unknowingly give it all away? Do you have any idea what it takes to move that kind of money? The paperwork, the lawyers, the financial advisors? I was channeling years of professional experience into my questions, my words sharp and precise. I saw a flicker of doubt in the eyes of some of our friends. They knew me as the quiet, methodical one, the one who always had a plan. They knew Maya as the dreamer, the one who lived in a world of maybes and what-ifs. Maya's face began to crumble. The confident performer was gone, replaced by someone who looked cornered and confused. I don't know, she stammered. I just thought, what did you think, Maya? I pressed, relentless. I was no longer the friendly neighbor grilling burgers. I was an interrogator, and she was on the stand. Did you think you could just spin this fairy tale and everyone would believe you? That you could take credit for something you had absolutely nothing to do with? The accusation hung in the humid air, heavy and undeniable. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Why are you being so mean, Ethan? She whispered, her voice cracking. I wanted it to be me. I wanted to be the one who saved my own son. Her words, meant to elicit sympathy, had the opposite effect. The raw, desperate selfishness of her statement hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't about Leo. It was about her. Her need for validation. For a heroic narrative that would make her the star of her own tragic story. And that's when the dam broke. All the pent-up frustration, all the years of quiet resentment at her casual thoughtlessness, all the emotional weight of my secret, came pouring out of me in a torrent of words. You wanted it to be you? I said, my voice laced with a fury. That shocked even myself. You have no idea what it took to save your son. While you were organizing bake sales and posting on GoFundMe, I was in my office, night after night, building a fortress of anonymity around a fortune. I was navigating a legal and financial labyrinth that would have made your head spin. I was lying to you, to everyone, To protect you from the one thing I knew would destroy our friendship. The knowledge that I had something you didn't. The power to save your son's life with the stroke of a key. A collective gasp went through the crowd. I had their full attention now. I had Maya's. She was staring at me, her face a mask of disbelief. "I'm the guardian angel, Maya," I said, the words feeling strange and foreign on my tongue. "I'm the one who donated the 5.5 million, not out of some misplaced sense of charity. Not because I'm a saint, but because I love you. Because I love Leo. And I couldn't stand by and watch him die while I had the power to stop it." I turned to Olivia, my anchor in the storm. Her face was pale, but her eyes were filled with a fierce pride. She knew the sacrifice I had made, the emotional toll it had taken on me. She had been my silent partner in this deception, my confidant in the lonely nights when the weight of my secret felt unbearable. "Ask her," I said to the crowd, my voice thick with emotion. "Ask Olivia, she knows. She's the only one who knew. Because unlike you, Maya, I don't need the credit. I don't need the accolades. I just needed Leo to be okay." I dropped the spatula on the grill with a clatter that seemed to echo in the sudden deafening silence. The smell of burning meat filled the air, a fittingly acrid scent for the scorched earth I had just created. I had spent my entire adult life building a fortress of anonymity, and in the space of 5 minutes, I had torn it down with my bare hands. And in the ruins, all that was left was the raw, unvarnished truth, and the horrified face of the woman I once called my best friend. The silence that followed my confession was profound, a vacuum that sucked the very air from the backyard. The cheerful chatter of the barbecue had been replaced by a stunned, uncomfortable stillness. People shifted on their feet, their eyes darting between me, Maya, and Olivia. They had come for burgers and casual conversation, and had instead been served a front-row seat to the implosion of a lifelong friendship. Maya stood frozen, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions, disbelief, shame, and a dawning, horrified understanding. The tears that had been welling in her eyes now streamed down her cheeks, leaving mascara trails in their wake. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She looked like a fish out of water, gasping for a reality that had just been ripped away from her. It was Olivia who finally broke the spell. She stepped forward, her arm still linked with mine, and addressed the crowd in a voice that was both gentle and firm. "I think it's time for everyone to go home," she said. There was no room for argument in her tone. It was a command, not a suggestion. Our friends and neighbors, grateful for the excuse to escape the emotional shrapnel, began to disperse in a quiet, awkward exodus. There were murmured apologies, averted gazes, and the clinking of abandoned plates and glasses. No one knew what to say. What do you say to the man who just revealed he's a secret millionaire philanthropist, and to the woman who tried to steal his thunder? Within minutes, the backyard was empty, save for the three of us. The remnants of the party, the half-eaten food, the brightly colored napkins, the slowly melting ice in the coolers, seemed like artifacts from a different, more innocent time. Maya finally found her voice, a choked, ragged whisper. "Ethan, I didn't know." "That's the point, Maya," I said, my anger beginning to recede, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. "You weren't supposed to know. It was never about you knowing. It was about Leo living. But why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice pleading. "We're best friends." The words hung in the air, a bitter irony. "Were we?" I countered, the question more for myself than for her. "Best friends don't try to steal each other's lives, Maya. They don't invent fantasies to make themselves the hero of a story that isn't theirs to tell." Olivia, ever the pragmatist, began to clear the debris from the table, her movements deliberate and calming. "Ethan," she said softly, "maybe we should go inside." I nodded, feeling suddenly drained, as if I had just run a marathon. I turned to go, but Maya reached out and grabbed my arm. Her touch was tentative, almost fearful. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible. "Don't hate me." I looked at her then, really looked at her, and what I saw wasn't malice. It was a deep, pathetic insecurity that I had somehow been blind to for years, a desperate need for validation that had festered into a monstrous self-deception. I didn't hate her. I pitied her. "I don't hate you, Maya," I said, my voice flat. "But I don't think I can ever look at you the same way again." I gently removed her hand from my arm and walked into the house, leaving her alone in the wreckage of our friendship. The days that followed were a blur of awkward phone calls and strained conversations. The news of what had happened at the barbecue spread through our social circle like wildfire. Some people were sympathetic, others were judgmental, most were just confused. My relationship with Olivia, however, had never been stronger. The secret had been a wall between us, a silent, invisible barrier. Now that it was gone, we could finally breathe. We talked for hours, long into the night, about everything, about my need for anonymity, her fear of my emotional detachment, the complex dynamics of our friendship with Maya. It was as if a pressure valve had been released, and we were rediscovering each other in the aftermath. "I'm proud of you," she told me one evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. "I know how hard that was for you, to be seen like that. I don't think I had a choice," I admitted. It was either that or let her rewrite history. "You did the right thing," she said, her hand finding mine in the darkness. "You stood up for your truth." Maya tried to reach out a few times, She left a series of rambling, tearful voicemails, each one a different shade of apology. She sent long, overwrought emails, dissecting her motivations, blaming her insecurities, her desperation, her single mother status. It was a masterclass in self-pity, with a healthy dose of emotional manipulation thrown in for good measure. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. The true fallout, however, came from an unexpected quarter. The local news, tipped off by one of our barbecue guests, picked up the story. It was a classic human interest piece with a juicy, dramatic twist. The secret savior of Charlotte. How a tech mogul's anonymous donation was almost stolen by his best friend. My carefully constructed wall of anonymity had been breached, and there was no going back. My phone started ringing off the hook. Reporters, charities, financial advisors, long-lost relatives I hadn't heard from in years. My digital life, once a pristine, controlled environment, was now a chaotic mess. My carefully curated invisibility was gone, replaced by a spotlight I had never wanted. It was a nightmare, but it was also a liberation. I had spent so long hiding in the shadows that I had forgotten what it was like to stand in the sun. And, as the initial shock wore off, I began to realize that maybe, just maybe, this was what I needed. A forced re-entry into the world. A chance to be more than just a ghost. The final and most painful consequence of my revelation came, as I knew it would, from Maya. About a month after the barbecue, I received a letter from her lawyer. She was suing me for emotional distress, for the public humiliation she had suffered. It was a ludicrous claim, a desperate, pathetic attempt to salvage some semblance of victimhood from the wreckage of her own making. But it was the final nail in the coffin of our friendship. It was the moment I realized that the Maya I had known, the friend I had loved, was truly gone, replaced by a stranger I no longer recognized. The ghost had been outed, but the real phantom was the woman I had once called my best friend. The lawsuit, of course, went nowhere. My lawyers, a team I had on retainer for just such an unforeseen circumstance, had it dismissed within a matter of weeks. The judge, in his ruling, called it frivolous and without merit, a legal slap on the wrist that was more embarrassing for Maya than it was for me. But the damage was done. The legal proceedings, however brief, had been another round of public exposure, another series of headlines that painted me as the benevolent millionaire and her as the grasping, delusional friend. In the months that followed, I began to slowly, cautiously, piece together a new life, one that wasn't defined by secrecy. Olivia and I started a charitable foundation in our name, a way to channel our newfound public profile into something positive. We focused on funding innovative educational programs in underserved communities, a cause we were both passionate about. It was a strange and unfamiliar world for me, a world of press releases and fundraising galas and public speaking. But with Olivia by my side, I found a new sense of purpose, a new way of being in the world. I rarely saw Maya anymore. She still lived in the same town, but our social circles no longer intersected. I heard through the grapevine that she had started dating a wealthy older man, a retired banker who was apparently enthralled by her tragic, romanticized version of her life story. I could only imagine the tale she was spinning for him, a narrative in which she was the wronged party, the victim of a cruel and manipulative friend. The last time I saw her was at a local coffee shop. I was in line, waiting for my order, when I saw her sitting at a table by the window, her back to me. She was talking on her phone, her voice animated, her gestures theatrical. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could imagine. I could see the performance, the carefully constructed persona of the wronged woman. For a moment, I considered walking over to her, saying something. What? I don't know. A final, futile attempt at closure? A last, desperate plea for her to see the truth. But then I realized there was no point. The chasm between us was too wide, too deep to ever be bridged. We were living in different realities now, our shared history rewritten into two irreconcilable narratives. I got my coffee and walked out, the bell on the door chiming my departure. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had finally learned that some ghosts are best left undisturbed. My life now is different. It's louder, more visible, more complicated, but it's also more honest. The weight of my secret, a burden I hadn't even fully realized I was carrying, is gone. And in its place is a newfound freedom, a sense of liberation that is both terrifying and exhilarating. Olivia says I'm no longer a ghost. She says I'm finally starting to become a real person, with a real life, a real story to tell. And maybe she's right. Maybe in the end, that's all any of us can hope for. To have our stories told, and to be seen, truly seen, for who we are, even if it takes a backyard barbecue, a shocking betrayal, and the implosion of a lifelong friendship to get there. As for Leo, he's thriving. He's a happy, healthy teenager now, with a passion for art and a wicked sense of humor. He knows the truth, of course. Olivia and I sat him down and explained everything in an age-appropriate way. He was quiet for a long time after we told him, his young face a mixture of confusion and gratitude. And then he looked at me, his eyes wide and serious, and said, "Thank you for saving my life, Uncle Ethan." And in that moment, all the pain, all the betrayal, all the public scrutiny, it all just faded away. Because in the end, that's all that ever really mattered. Not the money, not the secrecy, not the credit. Just that one, small, precious life, and the knowledge that I had been there to save it. And that, I realized, was a legacy, worth more than any anonymous donation. It was a mark on the world that could never be erased, not even by me.